奈良県国際課の課長をしております、辻翔子と申します。
Good evening, everyone. I am Shoko Tsuji from the International Affairs Division in the Nara Prefectural Government.
この度はこのような機会をいただきまして誠にありがとうございます。
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to do this event tonight.
奈良県国際課では例年 JET プログラムによって創生した英語圏、中国、韓国、フランスの計4名の国際交流員が勤務しております。
Ordinarily, through the JET program, we host 4 CIRs from China, South Korea, an English-speaking country, and France, and they work in the International Affairs Division in the Nara Prefectural Government.
今年度は新型コロナウイルス感染症の影響で、フランスの国際交流員が来日できてない状態ではありますが、残りの3名で協力して業務に取り組んでいただいています。
Due to the effects of COVID-19, and the French CIR for this fiscal year has been unable to come to Japan. The remaining 3 CIRs, however, have been cooperating and carrying out their work duties.
先ほどからご紹介ありましたアイルランド出身のクランシー・ケイティさんには2018年の8月から勤務いただいておりまして、公文書の翻訳とか、通訳、それから国際交流事業の企画立案、それから外国からの訪問者の接遇など、多岐にわたって活躍いただいています。
Katie Clancy, who was just introduced, is from Ireland and has been working here since August 2018. She has actively been carrying out various types of duties such as translating official documents, interpreting, planning and drafting exchange projects, as well as offering advice and cooperating on their implementation, welcoming visitors from abroad, among other things.
個人的な話になるんですが、私の誕生日は3月の17日、セントパトリックスデイの日です。
This is more of a personal matter, but my birthday happens to be on the 17th of March, which, as you know, is St. Patrick's Day.
セントパトリックはアイルランドにキリスト教を広めた聖人で、アイルランドでは皆さんグリーンの衣装を身につけられて盛大にお祝いをされると聞いております。以前からアイルランドに大変親しみを感じておりました。
I heard that St. Patrick was a saint who expanded the Christian religion in Ireland, and Irish people wear green clothing to celebrate this day. Ever since hearing that, I have felt a certain closeness to Ireland.
そして、全国でも数少ないアイルランド出身の国際交流員であるケイティさんを通じて、アイルランドについていろいろ知ることができて、大変嬉しく思っております。
Moreover, the number of Irish CIRs all over Japan is relatively low. However, through Katie, I'm truly glad that I was able to get to know more about Ireland.
本日は、ケイティさんから奈良県 CIR の業務や奈良県の特産品などについてご紹介させていただいて、皆さんにも奈良県について少しでも知っていただければ幸いです。
Today, Katie will tell you about her work as a CIR in the Nara Prefectural Government and about Nara Prefecture's local specialities. I'd be truly grateful if through this presentation you would be able to know a little bit more about Nara Prefecture.
本日はよろしくお願いいたします。
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tsuji-san. And I can't claim that we had great planning to have somebody who had their birthday on St. Patrick's Day, but it's really good to have you here. And thank you very much for taking the time this evening to attend this event.
Thank you very much.
And also Katie and everybody, as you can see, Katie is also, and all of our CIRs are fluent in Japanese. So it's very impressive each time we do one of these events. We sometimes take it for granted, but working in the Japanese environment, always in Japanese as well, is impressive. So that's great. So now we'll hand over to you, Katie, and look forward to your introduction and presentation.
Perfect, thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Katie Clancy and I'm a coordinator for international relations, or CIR for short, in Nara Prefecture, and thank you so much for having me today. And tonight I'm going to talk about the tales from the regions, but the Nara Prefecture perspective. So without further ado, let's get started. So, next on the slide, please. Thank you. So with all presentations, I have to start with a self-introduction. So like I said, my name is Clancy, and that's a picture of me there with like a massive filter. So that's what I want to say, like I normally look like, but I actually look like this. And I'm originally from Longford in Ireland, and if you're Irish, I'm sure you're very much aware that Longford is not a very famous county. There's been so many times in my life where people have said to me like, oh, where's Longford? Or is Longford a county? But it is a county. So that's really important. But it's an interesting place. But I went to university in the University of Limerick, obviously Limerick, and I studied, I got a bachelor's in applied languages, and I studied Japanese, of course, Spanish and German. And right now, like I obviously use Japanese and English quite a lot. Sometimes I get to use a little bit of German, but I rarely get to use Spanish. But yeah, I try to keep them up in my spare time, but I don't get to use them all the time. When I was in my second year of university, I did an internship in Tokyo, in Toyoko-in, in a hotel in Toyoko-in, one of Toyoko-in's hotels. And at first I worked as a cleaner for about 2 weeks. And then they let me be on the reception or on the front desk, and I worked as a receptionist. And through that experience, I was able to get better at Japanese, because I'd only been studying Japanese for about a year and a half at that stage in university. So there were so many things I didn't know. But through that experience, I learned a lot more like formal Japanese, and I learned more about the Japanese workplace and how to like talk to like guests and customers in general. And it was really, really useful. So I would definitely recommend if you're interested in getting better at Japanese, or especially if you're still a college student, try and do an internship in a program like that. Not even, or for any language really. And then currently I'm a coordinator for international relations in the International Affairs Division in the Nara prefectural government. And it's a really fun time. It's a really, really nice place to work, and it's a really nice place to live in. And it's just great, really. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So what exactly are my duties as a CIR? What does the job entail? Well, I do some translating work, but to be honest, the main thing that I do, my biggest job, is proofreading documents. I proofread a lot of documents. So there's a load of different kinds of documents that I proofread. Some include contracts. So sometimes like contracts for like between different like museums, or contracts for items that are going to be bid on at like a bidding auction. Sometimes I proofread manuals. Sometimes like they're manuals for some of like the English teachers that we have here that are also part of the JET program, because they mightn't be able to read the Japanese version, so they need an English version. And I also proofread a lot of tourist brochures, or just even like posters and stuff that have to do with tourism in Nara. A lot of letters as well. So like letters from the governor of Nara to governors in other countries, or to ambassadors both in Japan and to other countries. Then signs, so sometimes like just really general signs, like this shop is located here, or like this is going to be opened here. Or then sometimes if you're aware of Nara in any way, you might know that Nara city in particular is really famous for deer. There's like over 1,000, I think it's like 1,300 deer in Nara. So a lot of the signs that I have to proofread have to do with the deer, which can be really interesting. You learn a lot of interesting vocab. So there's that. And then sometimes I have to translate presentations from like Japanese into English. Sometimes for people who are obviously going to be giving a presentation, or sometimes for presentations that will be uploaded onto the Nara prefectural homepage. Other things that I proofread, or that I've proofread recently, have been more to do with COVID-19. So any like updates with regards to like the virus and the situation. I proofread documents on that, and then they get uploaded to the Nara prefectural homepage website, or they get put into like posters, and then those posters get distributed to other people, or they get stuck in various places around Nara, in various institutions and such. In our office, it's actually where we have like two professional translators that do Japanese to English. So they usually translate from Japanese to English, and then I would proofread their translations. So usually like the standard for them is very, very high, and they have fantastic English. And then sometimes I'll get materials to proofread from other departments within the prefectural government. And usually they will have been originally sent to an outsourcing translator, and then I get them and I get to like read them. And sometimes the quality is really, really good. Sometimes it's not so great, but you know, that's just the way it is. But it's really interesting. Sometimes I get to translate documents or proofread documents for the Nara Marathon is another one, and sometimes even subtitles. So it's really interesting. You never really know what your next proofreading job is going to be. So aside from that, I also help to plan and run these events we have in Nara Prefecture called JetNet with the other Nara Prefectural CIRs. So my director mentioned earlier that in the International Affairs Division, there are 4 CIRs. So there's myself, and then there's a Korean CIR, a Chinese CIR, and then there should be a French CIR, but unfortunately he wasn't able to come for this physical year because of obviously COVID-19. But usually the 4 of us work together on these like JetNet events, and they happen 4 times a year. So there's a winter one, which coincidentally happens to be on Sunday. There's a spring one, which usually happens in April. There's a summer one that usually happens in like around the end of June, and then there's an autumn one which happens in kind of like the end of October. So usually of those events, they all correspond with the season. So like the winter one is usually it will have like a lot of like craft activities or a lot of like winter themed activities. Or like the autumn one will have like a lot of maybe like it would be like a nature walk, and you can see like the autumn like foliage. Or the spring one the year before we did a treasure hunt. So you can see like the picture there on the slide. And then the summer one is usually a massive event that where like it's a really great chance for the people that are participating to show off their cultures. So what's interesting about these events is it's not, even though they're run by myself and the other CIRs, they're a chance for the participants, the people that participate in it are Japanese participants from Nara Prefecture, so people from down the road essentially. And then it's also made up of the Nara Jets. So a lot of the ALTs and the non-Nara Prefectural CIRs, like more like the city CIRs, they like come to these events, and then they're able to talk and participate in different activities with Japanese participants. And it's a really good way for them to connect, and a really good way for, especially the Japanese participants, to actually meet foreigners and, you know, get like some new perspectives on life, and also to practice their English if that's what they want to do too. So they're a really, really great chance to be able to do that sort of thing. I really enjoy doing them. So yeah, that's super fun. And for the summer one 2 years ago, it's called International Arts Festival. During that one, myself and one of the Irish ALTs that was living in Nara at the time, we did like a booth on Ireland, and it was really great being able to talk about Ireland and, you know, like tell Japanese people like about the real Ireland. We had like a lot of pictures of like a 4-in-1 and a 3-in-1, and like how Irish people like tan, like the real Ireland, the stuff that you wouldn't see like in books and stuff. Next slide, please. Thank you. So along with planning for JetNet events, I also do a bit of interpreting sometimes. Usually when guests or diplomats from abroad come to Nara, of course there's not as much of that right now, but in the past I used to do that. So, you know, like some diplomats and guests would come for official visits or for congresses held in Nara, or for various other intercultural events. That was always really great to get to interpret. You get to meet a lot of people. Along with that, we also have this magazine in Nara called Nanora that I and the other 3 CIRs write for. So we typically have 2 issues a year, and we get to select a city or a town or a village in Nara prefecture, and then we do a bit of research on that town or city or village or wherever it is, and we pick like something interesting about it, like maybe there's like a cafe, or maybe there's a famous temple, or like there could be something really, you know, something peculiar about it that you might want to pick, or you can pick several things and write about that. And so we go to the city, the town, or the village, or wherever it is, and we go and see whatever you're going to write about, or you interview people if you want to interview people that are living there. And then we write an article on it, and after it's been edited and approved by our bosses in the International Affairs Division, then we make the layout of it, so like how it goes into like the computer, and we turn it into like a proper magazine. And then after the Japanese version has been completely approved, then we translate it into our respective languages. So in my case, I translated into English, as you can see at the bottom of the slides. At the bottom of the slide, and there's, yeah, it's really interesting. Like for the last one that we did it like last year. We went to a place called Tenri City and another for Sakurai City, and we put them both together. And I like really love takoyaki, so I got to go to like a takoyaki place, and it was really great. And I got to like interview the people like that were running the takoyaki place, and I got to try really delicious takoyaki. And it's just, you can even like include like some of your own culture. Like I went to a cafe for one as well, and they had really good tea, and I talked about like tea and like how it's such a big thing in Ireland to drink tea, as I'm sure you're all aware of. So yeah, it's a really great way to, you know, showcase Nara and the culture, like Nara and all the like hidden gems that Nara has to offer. Because sometimes like you know, like we know certain things that maybe like people who have never been to Nara like don't know. And even sometimes like it's interesting for Japanese people to see like a foreigner's perspective about where they've grown up their whole lives. You know, when you've lived somewhere your whole life, sometimes you miss certain things. So it's really great for that, and it's really great for tourists and people who've never been to Nara to learn about some hidden gems in Nara. Next slide, please. Thank you. Another thing that we do in the International Affairs Division is we make scripts that are then like turned into a sound file and are then broadcasted throughout the prefectural government. So we make the scripts in our respective language and Japanese, and you can write it about pretty much anything as long as you get approval for it. So some of the ones in the past that I wrote about have been like business English, or like proverbs in English, or even more about like Ireland. Like I wrote about like Dublin as like a city, and the Gaeltacht region, like loads of random topics. It's really, really great, and it's a really great way to like showcase your culture, or even just like showcase the English language a bit more. So you write that, and then you get approval from your bosses, and they're like, yeah, you can write about that, and you write the script, and then you get to carry out the script with with one of the Japanese members of staff in the International Affairs Division. So we all have partners, and then you and your partner go to a recording studio and you record the script, and then that gets edited, and then eventually it gets broadcasted throughout the prefectural government during our lunch break. And it's really, really fun because you can be really creative with it. And then sometimes when you're just, you know, just walking around the prefectural government, or you're going somewhere, people will stop you and they're like, are you Katie from the English broadcast? And you feel like a celebrity, and it's really funny. So I really enjoy doing that too. Next, just like most CIRs, I do a lot of school visits and presentations. So at school visits, I mainly go to elementary, middle school, and high schools, but sometimes I'll go to play schools and universities. They're great. Japanese children are great. It's really, really fun. Sometimes they give you really like fun, like they give you like really cute like paper chains and cranes, and it's really sweet. And there you do presentations for them on Ireland, and sometimes like they'll request that they want you to talk about specific things, and maybe Irish music or Irish food, or like sometimes they'll really surprise you and they'll know like Irish words. I've like gone to some schools and like they have like signs prepared for you, and they'll be like "Gia Gwitch Katie" or like "Hello," or it's really heartwarming. And then on the presentation side, usually I do presentations sometimes for more like elderly people, or sometimes if they're like during my work hours, they might be for more like housewives. Most presentations, both for the schools and just the ones that are for more like that cater more to adults, usually they're in Japanese. I'd say 85% of the time they're in Japanese, but then the other 15% they're in English. Because sometimes like when I have a meeting with the client, they ask me to do it in English, maybe because like the association that wants it or the school is really trying to promote like English, and they want the students to hear a native English speaker give a presentation, or if it's an association, they again like want like a native English speaker. But yeah, it's really interesting, and you get to meet a lot of different people, and and you get to chat with them as well, and you get to meet a lot of students, and it's really great. I really enjoy that. Another thing I do, it's my other job. So even though I'm a CIR, I'm also a PA, or a prefectural advisor, which basically means if like mainly any of the elementary or middle school assistant language teachers or ALTs here, or any of the other CIRs have like any problems or concerns, they can like reach out to me and the Japanese PA, who happens to be my supervisor. And both I and my supervisor work really hard to help support the JEP participants that are living in Japan, because I'm sure if you live in Japan, you're very aware of the fact that it's not easy living in Japan, especially right now. And sometimes, it just really helps to be able to talk to someone about like things that are going on, or just getting a bit of advice from someone who's lived here a little bit longer. And sometimes, especially with some of the assistant language teachers, they mightn't be able to speak Japanese. So having someone to talk to in English who can then and then I would explain it to my like the Japanese prefectural advisor, who will then talk to their like supervisors or their contracting organization to help like solve issues. So I do a lot of like mediating along with the Japanese prefectural advisor. And then another aspect of this job is when the new JET participants come to Japan and they have like orientation in Tokyo. When they're done with that, I and the Japanese PA go to Tokyo and collect them and then bring them back to Nara. And then that same day we have Nara orientation, which basically entails myself and there's actually another PA, an ALT PA as well, who the two of us like talk to them about what it's basically like to live in Japan and what it's like to live in Nara and a bit about Nara, and we give them a manual basically for how to live in Japan essentially, and we give them a load of advice. And then after that, usually like 2 weeks after that, we 2 weeks after that we give them, we have Nara orientation, which is not just the new JETs, but is also comprised of the current JET participants that are here too. So yeah, and it's a really good opportunity for the newer JETs to talk to people who have been there a lot longer, and it's a really great way for them to get advice as well. So that was my duty as a CIR. But Nara Prefecture, with regards to Nara Prefecture, so it has a population of about 1.3 million people, and an area like the area is about 3,000. It's over 3,600 kilometers, and it's located in the middle of the Kinki region, with Osaka to the west, Kyoto to the north, Mie to the east, and Wakayama to the south. So it's a really great place to live. Like, there's so many amazing prefectures around you. It's so close to so many things. And then the capital city is Nara City, which is where I'm right now. And Nara City, it's really far north, so almost in Kyoto. An interesting thing about Nara Prefecture is it was originally called Yamato, and it was the first capital of Japan, which not a lot of people know. It also had the Nara period, which was the first period. So a lot of, like I said earlier, so deer are really famous in Nara. So for a lot of people, their image of Nara is of deer and temples and shrines and Buddha statues, and that definitely is a part of Nara Prefecture. Especially with the deer, I suppose it's kind of more Nara City. It's definitely an aspect of Nara Prefecture, but there's definitely like other things as well, and I really want to talk about that too. But if you do come to, like, especially in Nara City, there's a lot of deer merchandise, and it's great. It's really, really cute, but it's not the only thing about Nara. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So the prefectural flower is the Nara double cherry blossom. So it's just basically a cherry blossom with like a bit more oomph. It's got like double layers. The prefectural tree is the cedar tree. So in Yoshino, which is in the south of Nara, there's a lot of cedar trees, and there's a lot of products that are made from cedar trees as well. It's really nice, and like the smell is really, really lovely, and it's really great. And the prefectural character is Sento-kun. I didn't include a picture of Sento-kun, but he's really interesting. I definitely would recommend that after this presentation to go look up Sento-kun, or even just look him up on your phone now. He's an interesting character. Not what you'd expect maybe for the mascot for Nara Prefecture, but he's interesting. So notable industries are persimmons, which, I mean, as an Irish person, before coming to Nara, I'd never seen a persimmon in my life. But now they're just part of my life. See them all the time. They're great. But Nara has the second largest industry, or it's like the second largest producer of persimmons in Japan, which is very random. It's also really known for its refined sake. So if you're a big fan of like sake, I would definitely recommend coming to Nara. There's a lot of delicious sake. Socks. Nara is the biggest producer of socks in Japan, which, I mean, socks are great, and like, you know, obviously with the whole connection to the deer, you can get a lot of deer socks as well. It's really great. And then, like I said, cedar wood is a big one too. So you can get a lot of products made out of cedar wood, a lot of really beautiful like plates and cutlery, and even just interesting things like vases, and yeah, like little wooden ornaments. Some notable landmarks include Todaiji Temple, which is one of like it's one of the oldest and most historic temples in all of Japan. Really worth a visit. Nara Park, which of course contains all the deer. It's great. It also has Kofukuji Temple, which is also really worth a visit. Kasuga Taisha Shrine, which is so beautiful. It's got like loads of steps, and it's got over 1,000 stone lanterns. It's really, really beautiful. Horyuji Temple, which is the world's oldest wooden establishment. It's another beautiful temple. Not in Nara City, but it's just in a town right outside Nara City. There's also the former site of the Imperial Palace at Heijokyo, which is this really beautiful palace that's 2 stops away from Nara City on the train, and it's got a lot of like Chinese influences because it's such an old palace. It's really beautiful. And then there's Mount Yoshino, which is in the south of Nara, And it's this really beautiful mountain, but during the cherry blossom season, the whole mountain gets covered in cherry blossoms because there's so many cherry blossom trees on it. It's really beautiful. Some notable festivals and events are Yamayaki, which is the mountain burning festival, which actually happens to be on Saturday. And yeah, it's there's Mount Waksa, which is like the main mountain in our city, and they don't burn the whole thing obviously, but they burn a bit of it, and it's really interesting to see. There's also Shinye, which is this water like ritual ceremony that's connected with Todaiji Temple, and then there's Tokai, which are these like lanterns that are placed all around Nara Park during around, I think it's during August, and it's really beautiful. Next slide, please. Thank you. So next, I wanted to talk about some of the delicacies in Nara. So the main one and the most famous one is kaki no hazushi, or like this sushi wrapped in a persimmon leaf. So it's a traditional cuisine from Nara. It originated in Gojo City, which is known for its persimmon industry. They even have like a persimmon museum. And then it's a cuisine that's been passed down for generations. So basically, it's soaked in salt and vinegar, and then it's wrapped in a persimmon leaf, and then packed into a wooden basket and finally put on a stone to make it mature. And the reason to why that kaki no hazushi even exists is because Nara prefecture, like my home county of Longford, is landlocked, and Japanese people obviously love like fish. So like back in the day when they wanted to, they needed to preserve the fish that they'd caught, so they would wrap it in persimmon leaves, and then they like and did also that how they did they did that explanation there, and that's how it kind of came to be. Yeah, it's a really nice food. I would definitely recommend trying it if you ever come to Nara. Next slide, please. So miwa somen noodles are also really famous. They come from Sakurai City, which is in the center of Nara, and they're said to be the roots of Japanese noodle cuisine. They're really thin and white in color, as you can see in the picture there, and they're very chewy. They're really delicious, and they're registered with the Geographical Indication System, or the GI. Next slide, please. Strawberries. So I didn't know this about Nara at all before I came, but apparently Nara strawberries are really, really good. So strawberries were usually harvested in the spring, but due to advances in technology, it meant that they could be shipped during the Christmas season, which if you live in Japan, I'm sure you know, strawberries and Christmas go hand in hand. And then a lot of these technical innovations were developed in Nara during the 60s and 70s. So even now, strawberries from Nara Prefecture are known for being of the highest quality. So some notable brands are Asuka Ruby, which I can 100% say Asuka Ruby strawberries are amazing. They're so, so good. Asuka is like this village in the south of Nara, and if you go there, you're sure to be able to buy Asuka Ruby strawberries, but not even just that, they also have Asuka Ruby ice cream, which is so, so good. So if you go to Nara and you get to go to Asuka, I would definitely recommend going there or getting some of that. Kotoka are also like really good strawberries. They're really tasty. And Kaorino is also really, really good too. Yeah, all great strawberries. Next slide, please. And then of course, persimmons. Yeah, Nara loves its persimmons. So second largest producer of persimmons in Japan. And then like I mentioned earlier, Gojo City is where they mainly come from. There's a museum there. Yeah, it has a long history in our prefecture, even recorded in the Shosuin document. And then none of the fruit goes to waste. As you can see with kaki no hazushi, they obviously use the leaves to wrap up the sushi. And the end of the stem is also used, and so is the juice. So there's a lot of, you can get like the juice as like a condiment, or you know, like as like a sauce. You can also get, you know, you can get like a lot of like dried persimmons, and you can also get like persimmon kakigori, or like shaved ice. Like honestly, like you can get a lot of like interesting persimmon desserts, especially. It's really great. And then sometimes you'll even get just persimmons for free. It's really great. People will just give you persimmons. Next slide, please. So finally, I wanted to talk about the Overseas Expansion Leading Company Award. So basically, its aim is to commend businesses from Nara that have achieved results through overseas transactions, as well as honor and promote these businesses with the initiative as the model, and increase the number of businesses that will expand abroad. So it's basically a way to commemorate and reward businesses that have been trying to expand abroad, essentially. Next slide, please. So these are some companies that won this Leading Company award in 2019. So the first one is Nitwin, which is in Katsuragi City, which is like in the northwest of Nara. And like I said earlier, like the sock industry is pretty big in Nara. It's the largest in Japan. So this is the first of many. And they mainly produce socks and other like knit accessories. They also mainly export to Australia, America, and Britain. So they, as you can see, like they obviously are concentrating on the English-speaking world there. So even if you go on their website, they have like a lot of English included on it, which is really great. Another company is Yamato Godo Pharmaceutical, which is located in Kashihara City, which is the second largest city in Nara after Nara City. Their main products are like health drinks or like collagen drinks, and they're like drinks that contain a lot of like zinc and like ginseng and like that sort of stuff. And they're more concentrated on the Asian market, so they mainly export to countries like Singapore, Taiwan, Philippines, and America. Next slide, please. Next, we have the Skater, which is located here in Nara City, and they produce a lot of products that are mainly used in your daily life. So they have a lot of like plastic goods, like bento boxes or like lunch boxes, and they also do a lot of collaborations with like characters like Doraemon and like Sanrio characters. But yeah, they have a lot of interesting products, and they mainly export to South Korea, America, and Taiwan. Next, we have Ringstar, which is in Ikoma City, which is it's in the west of Nara, but it's really close to Osaka. And they mainly produce toolboxes and fishing cases. Bit random, but I like it. And then they export to South Korea, Malaysia, and Dubai. So again, kind of a concentration on the Asian market. And then finally, we have Tatsumi Textiles, which is also located in Kashihara City. And again, we have another sock industry. So again, they produce a lot of socks, except this time, you know, from the picture, you can see there are those socks where you can put every toe in. And they mainly export to France, America, and Russia. So more concentration on Europe and America there. Yeah. Next slide, please. So yeah, that was my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you become a bit more interested in Nara and might want to come visit in the future.
Thank you very much, Katie. I must say I learned a lot. I was hoping the whole presentation wasn't going to be about deer, so that's great. And I think my impression of Nara, I've been there a couple of times, has always been probably around the tourism, and obviously the deer are part of that, but also the temple. So it's kind of really good to hear of those industries. And actually, when I was listening to your presentation, I think some of the counties in Ireland, you know, the strawberries, I'm thinking about Wexford, or even the socks. I think Ireland and Donegal and counties like that had a very large kind of textile industry many years ago. So I think there's and even the fishing equipment or toolboxes again. Ireland has a big fishing industry. So I think when you talk about the industries in Nara or in different regions around Japan, it always there's always people in Ireland doing similar things, and there's always opportunity for collaboration. So thank you very much for educating us. I also learned a couple of new words. I never knew there was pentalingual. I think that's obviously 10 languages. So thanks for educating me on that. So what we'll do now is if anybody has any questions, then I'd ask that you just unmute yourself, and Katie will do her best to answer the questions. And I'm sure if she isn't able to answer them, she'll get back to you at some point. So do we have anybody who has any questions for Katie? And while we're waiting for people to have a think about that, there was a few questions came in as part of the registration process, and also I have one or two other questions myself. So the first question that came in on the registration was, Katie, just for you personally, and what do you like most about living in Nara, which I think is a good question. So it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, definitely, it is a good question. I mean, aside from like all the temples and the shrines and the deer and all that, I think my favorite thing about living in Nara is it's kind of cliche to say, but like the people are honestly like so kind. Like they're very chill and they're really sweet, and I really love speaking like the Clancy dialect with them. They're honestly they're just, to make it really Irish, they're just a gas bunch of lads, really. Like they're just great.
Very good. I think Longford and Nara seem to have certain things in common. Being landlocked is one, but obviously your sense of fun and humor as well. Another question that I have actually is probably a bit more less around you, but around Nara. Obviously, Nara is very dependent on tourism, and there's been absolutely no foreign tourists in the last 10 months anyway, probably. So what do you feel that the impact has been on Nara in that period because of the lack of tourism? And second part to that question would be, have you seen any industries in the Nara area that seem to be doing okay and weathering the storm? Yeah.
The main difference I've noticed, so like, even though obviously like international tourists have gone down, there was, for the last while, there was still a lot of like domestic tourists, especially because of the Go To Travel campaign. But I really found, like, especially around like April, May, a lot of the like souvenir shops were really like struggling, because obviously like there wasn't really people coming and no one was really buying like a lot of like souvenirs. So I definitely like noticed that there. Regards to like any like industries that are kind of weathering the storm, I'm not really sure of like any in particular. I haven't really noticed any, to be honest.
Okay. I still have a mental image of all these deers going around with nothing to do, wearing socks. Yeah, so I have to get that out of my mind. So do we have any other questions from anybody? Sorry, I think there's a question there coming in on the yeah, somebody's put a question in. Who's feeding the deer? Yeah.
So for especially around like, again, like kind of like that April, like May period, they like, the deer would like go to places they wouldn't normally go. Like you'd see them in places you wouldn't normally see them. And because people weren't buying like the deer crackers because there was no one, but like now it's fine. Like people, there were tourists like around and people were buying the deer crackers and they were getting their crackers and they were happier. But a lot of them got like really skinny. But I think they were just looking for like new places to find like grass. But they were fine.
For anybody who's dialing in from Ireland, just so you're aware, all the deer get fed by the tourists who go buy special deer biscuits. Yeah, obviously the deer are feeling the pain of not getting their regular biscuits. So that's interesting. Do we have any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if you have one. Okay, if you don't have any questions, then thank you again very much, Katie, for that. If anybody on the webinar has any other thoughts later about connections that could be built between Ireland and Nara, or industries you want to hear more about, then let me or Emiko know, and we'll pass on. We'll do introductions to Katie as well. As I say, the purpose of these events is to try and build longer term relationships between Irish business and the different regions in Japan. I have to say, our first two events, we kind of we took an easy option because we knew the first two regional parts of Japan had connections with Ireland, but with Katie we knew there wasn't as many connections, but the whole purpose is really to build new connections. So it would be great if anybody has any thoughts or comments or feedback afterwards on that. So unless there's any questions now, if anybody unmuting, I'll hand over to Tsuji-san, the president of the Ireland-Japan Chamber of Commerce, to say a few words. Thank you, Tsuji-san.
Thank you, Pat. Can you hear me? Yeah. Good evening, IJCC members and friends of IJCC. My name is Yoshihiro Tsuchiya, president of IJCC. Welcome to our third Tales from the Region webinar, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank Ms. Katie Clancy, coordinator for international relations at Nara prefecture, and also to Ms. Shoko Tsuji, director of international affairs division, Nara prefecture, for their very impressive and informative presentation and remarks. Thank you so much for today. I'm very surprised to know that the Tsuji-san's birthday is on St. Patrick's Day, which is surprising. As you know, St. Patrick is a very important day for Ireland. And also, I'm glad to hear that the Katie-san has experience on as an intern in the Toyoko-in groups, which is also, Toyoko-in is a very great sponsor for IJCC. Actually, Nara is one of my most favorite historical place in Japan, which I visited several times in the past. As you know, Nara has a very long history and the ancient capital of Japan before Kyoto. And there are lots of favorite places in Nara for me, but especially I love beautiful, beautiful temples in Nara, such as Horyuji, Yakushiji, Todaiji. Those are the most favorite temples in Nara for me. And also, I really recommend all of you to go to Yoshino Sakura. I think it's the most beautiful cherry blossom places in Japan, which the full of mountains is covered by cherry blossom for several weeks. And I really recommend you to go there. And also, I'm really glad to that Katie-san mentioned about the Miwa Somen, which is also my most favorite somen in Japan. Which in each summer, I eat this Miwa Somen a lot. I recommend you also to eat this Miwa Somen to everybody here tonight. Anyway, I hope this webinar will be the first step to develop the relation with between Nara and Ireland further, which both have an ancient history and deep culture. Finally, I hope all participants has enjoyed tonight, this webinar, and then wish to see you again in our future webinars, including our series of the Tales from the Region in future. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tsuji-san. And again, thank you to Katie and Tsuji-san for educating us all about Nara Prefecture. And I look forward to ongoing relationship. Before we finish up this evening, and we're perfectly on time, so well done, Katie, on ensuring that the the Irish are adhering to the Japanese schedules. I'll do my best to make sure I don't run over. Just some final slide there that you can see. First of all, thank you to our platinum sponsor, Toyokuin, and it's really a nice coincidence that Katie started her Japanese journey there as well. It's obviously worked out very well for Katie and for all of us as well by having her present tonight. Just on the IJCC itself, how you can help us by participating in these events and helping the community grow. You're already helping us by being here tonight. Last year, we held over close to 25 events online, and we have a whole series of events that we're planning this year as well. So you can support us by following us on the various social network services, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, like and follow and share, because I suppose the wider we go with the community, the stronger the community will get. So appreciate that. Obviously, we would be delighted as well to welcome new members to the Chamber, and there's various membership levels, and membership starts at an annual fee of 10,000 yen. And we're also, fortunately, in the last number of months, and since actually the pandemic, we've managed to expand the membership by offering international membership, and we've had regional membership as well. So there is sometimes a silver lining, and as I've mentioned a number of times, we intend to continue with hybrid events after we get back to some sense of normality and start holding in-person events again. And I suppose my final ask would be, if you or any of your colleagues, friends or family are living in other regions of Japan, we'd be delighted to talk to you about hosting an event in the Tales of the Region series. And then aside from the Tales of the Region series, the next event that we have, upcoming event, we have an event with the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan. It's always a very popular in-person event, and we'll be holding that in February, and this year it'll be online. And that's where a lot of our friends and colleagues from the American Chamber join us for an evening of networking and socializing online. So delighted to see you all at our next event. I'd also finally just like to thank Emiko as well for all the preparation for this event, and of course finally to Tsuji-san and to Katie. So I will sign off now. So once again, thank you very much. Have a good evening if you're in Japan. Have a good rest of your day if you're in Ireland, and see you again soon. Thank you all.